Welcome to Slooh. We're a couple of minutes late, but this is Slooh, where educators and parents bring live astronomy into their classrooms and home schools to inspire and engage their students. We're going to be hearing a little bit more about that later. Now, if you're an astronomy hobbyist or enthusiast, come and join our thriving global community who share their knowledge and skills to learn from each other. We've got more of that later as well. Now, if you are new to Slooh, students and members use Slooh's live telescopes, which we're looking at now, in the Canary Islands, Chile, and our Australian observatories to capture images of celestial objects, which they use in our Quest learning activities and research projects as well, actually. Now, members can also peer back to Earth using orbiting satellites and our Earth science learning activities to study our own home planet. They study geology, geography, environmental science, and all manner of other things. Now, I'm Paul Cox, your host today. And together with our experts and very special guests tonight, we're going to be learning about the supermoon and why it's called the full Beaver Supermoon. Now, if we look at the screen now, this is a live image coming in from the Canary Islands Observatory. That's at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. And don't forget, this is what Slooh members see every night. So Slooh members, you can snap images from that live feed. Just like you do every night, you know, when you control the telescopes to capture the moon, planets, comets, asteroids, stars, star clusters, galaxies, nebulae, all manner of things. Oh my word, we've seen some terrific comets so far this year. But don't forget, once you've snapped those images, you're going to be able to use those images in our special Beaver Supermoon quest that we're going to show you later as well. So that's what we're going to see and learn about. But what are we going to learn about and discuss with our experts this evening? Well, we got Slooh educators Keith Wozleski and Milton Villarol, who run our space science classes in English and Spanish. They're going to be telling us about supermoons, what makes them special, and we'll learn about some ancient stories from the Inca and Mayan civilizations that still resonate with us today. Wait until you hear about some of those later. They're terrific. We're also going to be joined by Slooh's Director of Curriculum, Dr. John Bovair, who's going to tell us about the Beaver Moon and also taking a peek at that special supermoon quest. But that's what I'm looking forward to, but you've got to wait until the end of the show. We have got two very special guests joining us from the Allen Academy in Texas. Longtime Slooh user Stephanie Hanover will be joining us with one of her students. Now, Alex recently won our Falling for the Moon contest, and we're going to see his winning entry later. And he's also regularly at the top of the students. Hey, Stephanie, we'll talk to you later. Now, let's get started and welcome my first guest, Slooh educator Keith Wozleski, to learn about the supermoon. Hey, Keith, how are you?
Hello, Paul. Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Big
Now,
event.
are you looking at, yeah, big event, big moon. All right. Now, are you looking forward, like I am, though, to meeting it? You are a special guest, a special expert guest, but I'm really looking forward to talking to Stephanie and Alex a little bit later. Are you?
All of the guests that whenever we have a guest, it's sort of everybody's on their best behavior and everybody's just been fantastic. So I know we have to kind of be down to business and look serious and professional today.
We do,
Yes,
we
I'm very
do,
excited
we do.
about her and
Well,
Alex, of course.
you're always like that, especially when you're running the classes. So,
Oh,
what
well,
first of all,
thank you.
before we get into the supermoon, Keith, what do you think of the live images so far? I mean, that's pretty spectacular, isn't it?
Very good. We're on Canary 2 ultra wide field. You know, I love refractors, which is what we have in the wide field. Very well known, the Teleview 85. The smallest telescope at school at Slooh. We don't need a lot of
Yeah,
firepower to look at the moon. Very, very crisp, very sharp, at least on my monitor. That's
it
what we
is.
expect from the ultra wide field. It looks fantastic. Full
It
moon,
does
perfect.
look pretty good. Does look pretty good. So let's get down to business.
Okay.
For people who don't know or have maybe never heard of a supermoon, what is a supermoon and what makes it super?
Well, here we have the classic supermoon comparison, Paul. It's an image, a poster that you made several years ago. We call it the supermoon because the moon looks larger than the moon does normally. And the reason this is because the moon's orbit around the Earth is not a complete circle, it is actually elliptical. And I encourage everybody at home to do a little bit of a deep dive and think about what that means. When it's elliptical, it means sometimes it's closer to the Earth, and when it's in the other position, it's a little bit further away from the Earth. And what's closer to us, it looks bigger than it does normally. So here in this composite image that you put together, we have the moon using the same equipment. It will take up more of the field of view. It will look larger than it does because it's closer to us.
Yeah.
If you happen to go outside tonight, if you have clear skies, you may not see the moon look larger because that's kind of difficult to see, but it may look brighter, which is part of
Mm.
the other part of the supermoon, larger and brighter than it is that we see normally.
Yeah, we've had supermoon shows in the past, and some commentators say, "Oh, you can't tell the difference." And actually, way back when I was first told that, that's when I produced this montage. And of course, the problem is that these two moons were 6 months apart, and it's very difficult to compare one full moon to another. We don't see them in the sky at the same time. But supermoon, the term, where does that come from? Is it a scientific term, Keith?
Yeah, no, it's not a scientific term. This is probably something that was created by the popular science and the media. The term that we would actually use is perigee. That's when the moon is closest to the point on the Earth. And actually, the supermoon is not always does not always coincide with the moment of its close approach. It's perigee. That's actually, I think, tomorrow. It's another great combination Greek word. Peri meaning close, and tis geese is the Greek term for the Earth. So anytime you see G in something, you know that you're referring to the Earth. The opposite of that, when the moon is furthest away from the Earth, that's apogee. That's its furthest point. And the moon will go through that cycle of being close sorry, closer to the Earth, further away from the Earth, depending on when it is. This happens to be the second supermoon in a row, second of four. It is the largest and brightest of the four. So we're kind of in a supermoon season as we're in that period where the moon is closer to the Earth
And
when
I
it's at
think
full moon.
I think Dr. John Bovair and in the Special Quest talks about the cycle, and this is actually the middle of 3 monthly supermoons that we've got this year, and we don't cover the other ones because I don't know. We've always taken this view, Keith, and I don't know if you agree, but if there are three consecutive supermoons, they're not really super or special, are they? So we're covering tonight's one. If we go back to the live feed, if we can, very quickly, this is the largest supermoon of the year. It's the largest full moon of the year.
Mm.
But Keith, you were talking about the orbit of the moon and it getting closer and further away from us. I thought the moon's orbit was circular.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think because that's what the diagrams show. But we do know for a fact that the orbit, especially of the moon, is elliptical, and we can prove that. It's provable. A lot of what we talk about in space science is a lot of speculation because you can't measure. Obviously, you're doing a lot of guesstimating, you're doing a lot of calculations. The distance of the moon we know because the Apollo 11 astronauts left reflectors. They left mirrors on the moon, and we can shoot a laser beam to those mirrors and calculate the distance between the Earth and the moon. So we know that at its closest point, like we are tonight at perigee, the moon is about 350,000 kilometers from the Earth, and at apogee, at its furthest point, about 404,000 kilometers. And it's because the speed of light is a constant, so that doesn't change. We know we can calculate the distance based on how long it takes for that beam to reach the Earth after we bounce it off the mirrors on the moon. It's amazing that we're even able to do that. It's the only piece of equipment from the Apollo 11 astronauts left on the moon that still work. And if anybody at home wants to learn more about that, it's a simple Google search. Do the mirrors on the moon still work? The answer is yes, they
Yeah,
do. That's how
yeah,
we know that
exactly.
the orbit is elliptical.
Yeah. Now,
Provable, proven
so
fact.
so you said the supermoon happens when the full moon occurs at perigee. I don't know if have we got an orbital diagram that we can pull up?
I
I'm
don't
not
have an
sure.
orbital diagram, but what I thought, what, first of all, to have the supermoon, we have to have the full moon. And that is, again,
Yeah.
this arrangement, this relationship between the sun, the earth, and the moon. That's the period of full moon. And of course, the moon is in orbit around the Earth in a counterclockwise direction. But that orbit of the moon isn't always in the same plane as the sun and the Earth. It's at about a 5-degree tilt. And then, as I mentioned, it's also at a variable distance, which is that elliptical orbit. So it's not always in the same plane. If it were, we would have an eclipse every month, which we don't have. And it is orbital, which means it will appear larger or smaller if we're comparing it to sizes of the moons that we've observed here on Slooh in the past. This also has a relationship with what we see when we have a solar eclipse. Again, provable fact. We know that during a total solar eclipse, the entire disk of the sun is covered by the full moon, or I'm sorry, by the new moon as the moon passes between the Earth and the sun. But if it's further away from the Earth, it's not the same size as the sun. It's a little bit smaller, and that's when we have the annular solar eclipse. The disk of the moon does not cover the full disk of the sun. So we have that ring of fire. So again, there are many ways that we can prove this idea that the moon does appear larger and smaller. Again, it's not actually larger or smaller. It doesn't get any bigger.
Yeah.
The size of the moon doesn't change, but it appears smaller or larger to us depending on where it is in its elliptical orbit.
So we'll skip ahead a little bit here, Keith. A lot of people think, don't they, that the full moon is the best time to observe the moon. And we can see, quite a few features there. But you always, you're quite keen on saying to people, no, actually, the full moon isn't the best time to observe the detail. Why is that?
Well, we have different ways of seeing the moon depending on what phase it happens to be in. So when we see the full moon, we are seeing the moon at its brightest. And that relationship, you can imagine the sun and the earth, the sun is shining like shining a flashlight on an object. All of the subtle detail and all the subtle features that we kind of look forward to seeing aren't really visible. They're washed out because of this brightness of the moon. Uh, even more of an example, tonight with the supermoon, where it's about 30% brighter, even more of that detail is
Mm,
washed out. People who really get into the moon or are very keen observers of the moon look forward to that point where the shadow between the day side and or the illumined part of the moon and the unillumined part of the moon starts to form. We start to see that dividing line that we call the terminator. And that's when the sun starts to cast shadows upon the moon because of lunar features like the mountains, the many mountain ranges on the moon, crater walls. That's what's casting these shadows upon the face of the moon. And it's not just the detail of the features that we get to see in these mountains and craters, but also some of the what we call the clair-obscur features, how the shadows interact with each other and create patterns that aren't actually there,
mm,
but create these shapes and these images that the mind gets tricked into thinking are actually there when they're not. I use the classic example. This time of year, the sun is setting very low in the western sky, and I live on an east to west street. I just look at the house across the street. It casts very, very long shadows
mm.
as the sun starts to set. So we can imagine the moon moving into that relationship where the sun is now casting shadows upon these very, very tall mountains or illuminating very, very tall mountains or crater walls and then casting the shadow behind it. So that's really where we get to see the detail. Also, we're looking at a full image of the moon. To see some of the detail that Dr. John is going to talk about in the quests, we really need to use Canary 4. We need to be zoomed in a little bit more so we can see things like lunar rills and swirls and some of the
Mm.
other features that you really need to have more magnification than we have here. But with all that said, I happen to love the full moon because it's like looking at a moon map. Everything we need to
Yeah.
see is there. We don't get the fine detail, but we get the overall picture. And that's what we have here tonight. And as I said on Canary 2, looks great.
It does indeed. Keith, have you got anything more to share about a supermoon before we move on and meet Dr. John Bovair?
No, I think that's all we need to know. I just hope everybody at least has an opportunity tonight, or if not tonight, tomorrow, to soak up some of that moon glow. We're getting a little bit more illumination. The moon will cast moonlight or moon shadow. That is a real thing. Onto your backyard or wherever it is that
Yeah,
you observe the moon from, and just soak up the moon and the beauty of the full moon, especially the supermoon.
exactly. Oh, actually, Keith, I did mean to ask you one more thing because you pointed out just before we went live are we actually watching the full moon right now? Because you noticed something on that right hand limb, the right hand edge of the moon, didn't you?
Yeah, well, the full moon, we see it, in the papers in the popular media. Full moon tonight, tomorrow night, last night. The moment of full moon is actually a moment in time. It's when the
Yeah,
moon comes into that exact moment, that exact relationship. We see this again with the solar eclipse. The new moon, period of new moon, lasts only for a few minutes at the most, and then it immediately starts going into the crescent phase. We are already in the waning gibbous phase because the
yeah,
terminator is already starting to form on that right-hand side of the moon. You can start to see some detail on the craters, and that indicates the formation of that terminator. So the full moon, actual moment of full moon was, I think, about 12 hours ago. So we're already at about
yeah,
99% illumination. The moon is already past full moon, even though it looks full, and will look full to the naked eye, certainly for the
yeah.
next night or two. But technically, we have moved past that point.
Thank you for that, Keith. I love that. So, Keith, we'll see you a little bit later. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you,
That's
Paul.
the science behind why tonight's moon looks so bright and close. But now let's welcome Slooh's Director of Curriculum, Dr. John Bovair, and look at how full moons got their names and why this particular one is called the full Beaver Supermoon. John, welcome.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for having me on.
What do you think of the live feeds at the moment?
I think they're absolutely brilliant. Love them. Love seeing as much of the full moon as we can see. I love seeing the raid craters really popping
Yeah,
out. And as Keith pointed out, yeah, you could definitely see on the right side there that it's actually a little past full moon. The
yeah,
quarter phases are also phases that only last a moment too.
yeah, yeah.
So it's really a treat when you actually get to see them.
It is. In fact, we should have a quest, John, which is capturing the exact moment of those quarter phases and the full moon as well. But anyway, tonight's
Definitely.
full Beaver supermoon is not only dazzlingly bright, but it's also steeped in rich history and meaning. So, why is this particular full moon referred to as the full Beaver moon? Where does that name come from?
So the beaver moon comes from the Native American peoples, particularly the Algonquin-speaking peoples of northeastern United States and eastern Canada. This full moon marks the time of the year when the beavers were the most active. They're preparing for winter. They're building and repairing their lodges and dams before the waterways would freeze. This is also the traditional time when hunters would set up their beaver traps, and this ensures a good flow of warm pelts to make coats and other clothing to make themselves get through winter and keeping nice and warm. So, because of that, this full moon has become known as the Beaver Moon. So, it's a
I
signal of preparation, resourcefulness, and also with the natural rhythm of the changing seasons.
It's kind of a bit sad as well, isn't it? You know, the old beaver hunting and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, it is.
why do full moons have these different names then?
So these full moons have different names. They're deeply
Ah,
rooted in cultural traditions from various societies, especially those Native American peoples in the United States. Many full moon names that we have today, like the ones that are displayed here, they come from these groups. And so, you got to think back then, before we had technology and, a phone where we can look at a calendar, you had to come up with the names of the full moons to kind of let us know what part of the year that we're in. So, um, in this way, the different full moons ended up getting different names to, based on what was happening in that time of the year. So, for example, in January, this is known as the Wolf Moon, and it's named after the howling wolves that would howl at the moon late at night.
love that. So where do these full moon names that we hear today, where do they come from?
So these particular ones, like the Beaver Moon, the Harvest Moon, Wolf Moon, they're popularized by the Old Farmer's Almanac, which was
Ah,
first published in 1792.
wow.
Um, and I think it's actually still in print today. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, the almanac drew from Native American lore, colonial Americans, European traditions, kind of blending all of these into familiar full moon names that are in use today.
So you're mentioning a lot of these names came from one particular geographic location, but are there other names for November's full moon, maybe from different cultures or
Oh
geographic
yeah,
areas?
oh, absolutely. So, like I was
Oh,
mentioning, how the full moons kind of helped us like figure out what time of the year that we're in. Practically every culture has a name for the full moons throughout the year. And so this, what's being shown up here, this is a table that shows some of some cultures around the world and the full moon names that they have for November's full moon. So sometimes this full moon is called the frost moon or the freezing moon or the snow moon, which is, of course, reflecting the growing chill as the Earth's
mm.
quiet transition into winter. Now, I think on this list, my favorite one is what the Dakota people call this moon, the moon when the horns are broken off. And this
Oh,
reflects the time when the deer shed their antlers. So I think that's pretty neat. Do any of these ones kind of stand out to you, Paul?
well, it has been getting fairly chilly, John, recently in the UK, so the log fires have come out. So I reckon the Chinese winter beginning moon. I know it's not winter yet, but it's starting to feel like winter here. And I spent the weekend raking up leaves as well, so I guess that's more autumnal. But yeah, I think the or the frost moon. I don't think we've had a frost, or maybe the freezing moon as well. Where does the oh, so the freezing moon is Native American as well. So.
It is, it is. And you know what's interesting too, I think on here, yeah, there's the Maori moon is on here, and this one is it marks the time of um resetting the soil and finishing the harvest and preparing for new planting. And you may think, well, wait a second, we're going into winter,
Yeah.
but in New Zealand, it's they're actually going into summer. So
Yeah,
the seasons are reversed, and so in that way, it's really fun to see the different full moon names.
it is.
Um,
Yeah. And Hawaii there as well. It's marking the season of harvest because presumably they're a little bit warmer still. So harvest comes a bit later, than for us in more northern hemisphere. So, yeah, I love
yeah,
that.
definitely. Definitely.
Uh,
It's a lot of fun.
Now, John, you are going to come back a little bit later, aren't you? And you're going to tell us about some Quest learning activities that students can. Let's show people how easy it is to capture your own image using the Slooh telescopes. This is a live feed from the Canary Islands. You snap that button, and that image is going to be available where, John? You're going to talk about them later, but how can
Yeah,
students use that?
not only am I going to talk about quests, but I'm also going to talk about our special moments quest for the show tonight, the Beaver
Oh,
Supermoon 2025 quest. So, yeah, make sure you snap some images because you'll be able to use your favorite Beaver Supermoon image in that particular quest.
excellent. I can feel an art project coming on as well. Because Keith was talking about seeing things in the moon and the shape. We've got the old lady, we've got the Tyrannosaurus Rex, we've got I think the Chinese see a rabbit in the moon,
Hmm.
but maybe there's a kind of join the dots there on lunar features that would make a beaver.
Yeah, definitely.
Who
And,
knows?
my favorite one that people would see is it. I had some Canadian students once, and they told me that they see a hockey player in the moon. And
Oh,
was it Mare? Shoot, made me put on the spot, but you got the hockey puck that's over on the right
oh
hand
yeah, I
side
see it.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And the I see a bunny, so the ears of the bunny are kind of like the hockey stick about to hit the puck.
Yeah, you see, the problem is, as soon as you have one image fixed in your mind, it's very, very difficult to shift that, isn't it?
It is, it is.
John, we're going to see you a little bit later. Looking forward to our chat about quests and how students, especially this Moments quest. So, everybody out there, make sure you're snapping your images of the full Beaver Supermoon for John's quest. John, we'll see you a little bit later. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Paul. Enjoy, everyone.
Now that's we've explored some North American names for the full beaver moon. Now let's journey to Mesoamerica and the Andes, where the moon was deeply revered. as a kind of guiding presence in the night sky. And we're going to welcome our next guest, Slooh expert member and quest author Milton Villarreal, who's going to take us on a journey through how the Inca and Mayan civilizations interpreted the moon, exploring the sacred places in South America dedicated to her light and how these cultures understood the moon's changing colors. Along the way, we're going to discover how these ancient stories continue to inspire us today. Welcome, Milton. How are you?
Hey, everybody. Paul, thank you for having me. Hello, world. It's very, very nice to be here in company of such wonderful minds.
Oh, well, you're one of those wonderful minds, Milton. So, what are you going to tell us about this evening? Because I really do enjoy these rich cultural stories from South America. So, what have you got that's moon related for us tonight?
Okay, well, in South America, we don't have different names for the moon, okay? We just have one of them. It's called Mama Quilla or Mother Moon. To the Inca, the moon was an equal to the sun, okay? In my background, you can see the relative size of the sun and the moon. So together, they were the male and female deities this civilization had. They had equal powers. The sun reigned during the day and the moon during the night, right? So there was a very interesting balance between these two. Now, of course, for naked eye astronomy, there was no way they could figure out the distances that Keith talked about and how eclipses would form, for example. So to them, it was just mother moon and father sun. And that's what started all these interesting myths in which they could figure out things, around the moon. On my next slide, I will show you a very interesting
Oh,
myth about the moon. This is the
why,
Inca
why is,
goddess Mama Quilla.
why is she crying, Milton?
Well, uh, she's associated with female life, okay? And traditionally, women have always taken the burden of family, of the home, etc. And to some extent, they have been mistreated according to modern standards. So the moon was crying, and although she defended women, let's say, and kept them safe in a way, it was impossible to deny that women, suffered more than men in that society.
Mm, please
So this is
carry on.
this is the depiction they had about the moon. The eyes are filled with silver, okay,
Okay.
and each of those teardrops were silver. That's what they thought about the moon and why the goddess cried.
Okay. Carry on, because I think you've got some more slides for us, haven't you?
Oh, definitely. There is just one more about this. This is a place that I want to take you to. This is in near Cusco. Okay, it's a place called Machu Picchu, and near Machu Picchu, the most impressive fortress they have in that area. They have this very secret place called the Moon Cave or the Moon Palace. Now, just imagine all those walls, completely silver plated
Wow.
and in honor of the moon. They say that there were statues there where those windows are. There were, lots of silver decoration around it. And this one is oriented to the full moon. So every time there was a full moon, people, received all the light of the moon in that cave. To the Inca, caves were an entrance to different worlds, different dimensions. So this one was the entrance to the night, right? The realm of the moon goddess.
It's just amazing. So, how old is this?
Well,
When was this used?
They date this back to at least 1,000 years back when the Inca became an empire, right? Because before, as many civilizations, they had only a very simple form of life, uh, little towns scattered all around the Andes. But when the Inca started telling these stories that I'm telling you right now, they started to gain the preference of the population. And therefore, they reached an imperial state where they were able to build all these structures. Now, something you will notice is that the Inca did not have the power to change nature, really. They built around it.
Yeah.
So they made their stone, fit the places where they were going to feel. You can see that in Cusco, all around
Mm.
in this place. They were really masters in crafting rock.
Milton, you've got some other slides for us here. Now, this is a very
Definitely.
special mountain, isn't it?
Uh-huh. I want to take you to my country, Bolivia, and this is in Potosí. This one is called Cerro Rico or Rich Mountain. The story behind this is really fascinating. If you check the next slide, you will see the mint house. Thousands of coins were minted in this house to be taken to Spain and as currency, let's say. And all that silver came from that mountain I just showed you. The mask
Oh,
that you see in the back of this patio is supposed to represent the face of the man who discovered silver in this mountain. You can imagine his surprise. He was just a shepherd, and he
wow.
decided to stay the night in the mountain. It was so cold that he built a little bonfire to keep warm. The next morning, there were silver little,
Okay.
yeah, the
Yeah, so
drops.
he'd smelted some ore in the earth or the rock, and
Exactly.
wow,
And so,
what a
yeah,
discovery.
he discovered that, and he realized that silver was really at the surface of the land. And well, you can imagine. Of course, he went down the mountain shouting that he had discovered something interesting, only to be overtaken by the Spanish conquistadors. And well, they appropriated all that silver because they said that everything that they discovered in these parts of the world belonged to
Yeah.
the royalty, right? So that's the story of this part of the world. And
It-
where did all this silver come from? It came from the tears of the moon, right? This is how the Inca envisioned the different phases of the moon. Here
right.
you can see a kiln where you are again working with the silver. And if you push the next picture, if you click on the next, yes, there you see how,
Oh,
as you fill in this kiln with silver, you are also filling the face of the
the
moon,
face
right?
of the moon.
So the way to explain phases of the moon was just this way.
Wow.
They considered that the moon was made of silver and that every time the moon was winning, let's say, that silver went straight to the mountains of the Andes Mountains, right? Where
I,
they
I
found
love that.
tons of it.
I love that. Oh, colorful moons. Wow, what's going
Oh
on
yeah,
here?
as colorful as the cloths I've been showing you in the back of my slides. The cloth is called aguayo, and it represents all the colors that you will see in nature, really. No, something interesting about this that you can see in modern fashion nowadays is that each of these, if it's an original, was made by hand. Therefore, it's exclusive, right? So anybody who wants to wear something made of aguayo, made by hand, will be wearing something that nobody else has. Well, the moon
Right.
has also different colors around here, but we don't have names for it. We just say, looking at the moon, we can sort of predict the weather, uh, the next day.
Yeah.
For example, if the moon is white, it's going to be a windy day, almost for sure. And if it's a little yellowish, it's going to be a hotter day than usual. So, during winter, we really want the moon look a little yellow.
Yeah.
If it's reddish, and you have heard me talking about the jaguar attack on the moon,
Yeah.
well, our moon goddess is in danger. So we have to shout, we have to make noise so that the jaguar lives there in peace, right? Um, if it's silvery, we're talking about rain the next day. And it's also linked to spiritual rebirth, right? People will, retreat, let's say, to sort of meditate and come back to some balance in life. And if it's bluish, it's going to be very dusty, very windy, but mostly it could mean that one of the nearby volcanoes is about to erupt.
Oh,
So
okay.
those are all the ways in which our ancestors could, in a way, predict what was going to happen the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so you're talking about the eclipsed moon there. For any viewers, if you love mythology and culture, then make sure that you watch one of our recorded lunar eclipse shows. We did one a couple of months ago, and Milton tells us all about the story of the jaguar, and you need to watch it because it's a beautiful story, piece of storytelling around these celestial events which ancient people were trying to understand and explain. So Milton, thank you so much for joining us again. I'm actually
Oh,
going
thank you.
so tomorrow morning with my coffee, I think I'm going to rewatch one of the previous shows and your segment because I love that story. I really do. So you're a great storyteller. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I don't want to leave you without saying that tonight, fishermen will stay home, okay? Because a full moon is not a good thing for them. If you want to catch big fish, you want
Okay.
to wait until the moon is new.
Okay. That's a new one on me. So thank you, Milton. It's always a pleasure to see you. Wow, look at this live image coming in from Slooh's Observatory in the Canary Islands. That's at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. Our telescopes there are on an 8,000 foot high, 2,000 meter high volcano in the Atlantic Ocean. And we get these crystal clear views. We were so worried there was a little bit of cloud there tonight, but these views are looking fairly spectacular. Now, anybody who is watching and a Slooh member, if they are snapping images of this supermoon, then you can use it in our special quest. And we are going to welcome back Dr. John Bovair before we meet our very special guest from the Allen Academy. But John, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank
Well,
you.
I was kind of thinking of Milton's story there and wondering why there was any of that mountain left. If they found this silver in it, you'd think it would have been absolutely flat. Or maybe it was used to be a lot bigger. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? It certainly was one of the reasons why the Spanish Empire ended up falling. Is They ended up having too much silver.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, that's a story for another day.
Exactly.
Yes,
You can
it
tell me
was
that one
taller.
tomorrow. I'm already fascinated by that one, John. So now, John, anybody who doesn't know that much about Slooh, what are quests?
So quests are Slooh's learning activities. They're hands-on, age-appropriate, and experiential. They're aligned to NGSS and other state standards. They're great for STEAM-focused classes and are cross-curricular in nature, incorporating elements of different branches of science, of course, astronomy, and earth science, computer science, and even into social studies and history and art. We have and I've never been able to say this before yet. We have over 100 interactive lessons that challenge members and students to use Slooh to collect and analyze data to inform their own conclusions.
Wow. And there's a huge variety of quests. I mean, Milton's written, I think, one or two for us as well. So I was about to ask the question, but this slide has kind of preempted it. I was going to ask you, John, are there any lunar moon related quests? And it looks like we probably got quite a few.
We do. We have several lunar related quests at different age levels from kindergarten all the way up through college. Of course, there's the Beaver Supermoon quest that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but we have quests that go over the lunar phases, that go over eclipses, go over supermoons, seasons, and tides. We have some that go over the Apollo program,
Yeah,
and even one that Milton wrote, the Mauna Kea Inca Moon, is right up there as well. So we have tons of
excellent.
quests that involve the moon.
Yeah, and there's quite a few there that kind of feature the moon, not just about the moon, but honestly, if you are a lunar fan, a moon fan, then this is the place to be to go through some of these. Now, when a student has, or a member has gone through a quest, John, they've captured images. What do the students make at the end? What's the main output from a quest?
The main output is a
Ooh,
poster-sized infographic that showcases the images that students captured themselves with Slooh's telescopes, which demonstrates mastery of the content. And here's actually some examples of some of these posters. On the left, we have our lunar cycle, and lunar phases quest, and all of those lunar phases were caught on Slooh's telescopes. And on the right, we have the from our lunar features quest. We have, I really love Lunar Features Quest
yeah,
because it involves looking at the moon and with different telescopes, finding the right telescope to use to find different craters and other features. And so students use these posters as a summative assessment. They share them as observations or in their workspaces. Can we go to the next slide, please? Here's
oh, I
a
like
couple
these.
more. Yeah, here's a couple more lunar related posters. And what's really cool is these infographic posters incorporate responses to questions in the quest. So they're
Okay,
highly personalized. They generate a spirit of accomplishment for the student. They provide an easy tool to recall what they learn on the quest. And it's an opportunity for them to let their artistic expression come forth. And while these posters are kind of using our template, um, students can do a lot more things on these posters than just put their images and text on.
so all of the images in the white boxes, they've been captured with Slooh's telescopes. Doesn't it mean that all students are going to land up with the same poster?
That's a really great question. So, they're going to end up with different posters because every student poster is unique. If you want to think of the gibbous and crescent phases, one student may capture it when the moon is at maybe 10% full, and another student may do 15% full. So already those two
Yeah,
images are different. But moreover, students can edit and redesign all elements of the poster. So they can change the background color, they can change the font, they can change the
okay,
words that are showing up on here. I mean, if they really wanted to, they could delete everything off of the poster and make one completely from scratch if they
excellent.
wanted to. And we've had some students do that, and it's been really amazing to see the things that they've been able to create. So this
We
flexibility allows students to explore their artistic expression and create something that speaks to them and
yeah.
for them.
And I think we're going to see a lovely example a little bit later from Alex, the student who's joining us. So that's
Oh,
going to be quite
awesome.
cool. But John, you mentioned, so for everybody who's snapping images furiously of the supermoon tonight, you mentioned we've got a special moments quest celebrating the event tonight. So tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, definitely. So the quest to look out for is called a Beaver Supermoon 2025. On the right image here, this is from our quest discovery page. You can search for it just by searching for either beaver or supermoon. In this case, this example is showing supermoon, and it's actually pulling up some other quests that we have that go over the supermoons, like our universal gravitation quest. Students learn about Kepler's first law, and they learn basically everything that Keith was telling us about apogee and perigee and how the orbits aren't circular. So this quest begins by covering what the Beaver supermoon is, and the names of the remaining full moons from this year and also for next year, which is something that we covered in my previous segment. and it explores names from other cultures that are given to the November moon. So there's actually some cultures that are on this table that we didn't cover in my
Okay.
last segment. The second step is all about supermoons. It explains what a supermoon is, why they occur, how often they happen, and I actually went down a rabbit hole when writing this one because I really wanted to understand how close does a full moon have to be to perigee in order to be a supermoon. And so there's a graph at the end that I made that shows the not only the supermoons but also the micromoons. So this is a micromoon is a full moon that happens near apogee, the furthest distance from the moon. And so this graph is showing the supermoons from 2022 through 2027 and also the micromoons as well. And what's and the squiggly line that you see there, that's the distance between the Earth and the moon. And so every time you have a trough towards the bottom of the graph, that's perigee. And when you have a peak, that's apogee. And one thing that you notice immediately is that perigee and apogee don't happen at the same point at every orbit. They change a little bit. And this is because there's other planets in the solar system. It's not just the Earth that's tugging at the moon with gravity. Everything is. And so that's pulling the moon and it's making it dance a little bit. And so sometimes the moon is a lot closer to us than it is in other times. And so the a supermoon is when a full moon is within 90 degrees of the closest perigee for the calendar year. And so for that reason, we have three supermoons this year. If you look at the 2025, you can see that there's another full moon, but it didn't quite get into the supermoon area.
Yeah.
But you can also see that tonight's full moon is the one that is the closest full moon to Earth this year. And
Yeah.
so it is the superest supermoon, if you
Super,
will.
super. I love that. When you first showed me this diagram, John, I thought it was one of the best explanations of a supermoon that I'd ever seen, and explaining that cyclical nature, why we see these clusters of three or four of them at a time. I think you're an absolute star doing that. But John, let's move on a little because we've still got our special guest to do, to interview. Now, you've been really busy in the Quest curriculum team, you and Kelly this year. Major updates to Quest for this school year. What can you tell us about those if there's some new educators watching this evening?
Yeah, we've been extremely busy this year. We've been revamping our entire high school and college curriculum, adding new features like quest parts, step sections, question sets, and we've updated our teacher resources document so that it has tips for success, messages for educators that are preparing to use the quest in the classroom. We've included additional extension activities that are designed to be used in the classroom or outside the classroom. We've even added cross-curricular activities like history, art, math, and more. Not only that, we put quizzes in for each of the quest parts as well. So
Wow.
if you want to have your, test whether or not your students have done these quests or not, you can do that. Um, what's what another thing that's really interesting is we've separated the astronomy and the physics learning progressions. And so the physics learning progression has similar quests as the astronomy ones, but the physics ones go into deeper into the physics and science behind the topics that are being covered. We also launched an advanced mission learning progression, which teaches students how to utilize Slooh's advanced mission scheduling capabilities
Yeah.
and how to and gives students ideas and teaches them how to use their FITS files and schedule coordinate missions. And some of the quests even teach students how to use the Python programming language to interact with and analyze their FITS data.
Excellent. I like the sound of all of this, John.
We also, of course, since we have our new satellite page up, we launched a Earth Science learning progression, which contains quests that students can use to learn um, how to use the satellite page, learn how satellites stay in orbit, some astrodynamics. We even have some quests that are like collection quests, where students are capturing the 50 best craters on the Earth, not on the moon,
Okay.
and other things that cover geography, geology, topics like that. But one other thing I wanted to make sure I get to, which I think is something that's so much fun, and I had an image up here. just a moment ago, but we've launched topical-based learning progressions. So at Slooh, we have learning progressions, which are carefully curated groups of quests that you can do all together. Um, could we get that one last slide up if we can, please? And so similarly to our advanced mission learning progression, we have nearly 20 separate learning progressions that cover topics like the life cycle of stars, space missions, famous astronauts, cosmic models, and open-ended projects as well. So if you're an educator who's looking for quests that cover a specific topic, go ahead and take a look at our learning progressions because we might have a small series
Yeah.
of quests that'll fit exactly what you're looking for.
So, John, you've set the bar very, very high in 2025 as far as quest development is concerned. What have you got planned? How are you going to top it in 2026?
That's a really good question. But I'm going to start off with the one thing that I am so excited to start working on after I get done with a secret art quest that I'm working on right now.
Oh,
We are going to be launching a full moon learning progression. And so this learning progression is going to have a quest for all of the full moons of 2026, including the blue moon that's happening in May. So students will be able to learn about the wolf moon, the pink moon, etc. And so we're going to pop those quests in that learning progression at the beginning of each month, so you'll be able to see them. But we're also going to be putting in a long-term collection quest where you can compile all of your 2026 lunar full moon images and display them on a poster. And
oh,
in that particular quest, we're going to cover supermoons and micromoons in a little bit more detail than is in the Beaver Supermoon quest. Because once we have all of the full moons of the year, which there's going to be 13 of them, it'll be a little bit easier to kind of point out which ones are the full moon and which ones aren't. Based on the comparison diagram
yeah.
that you made several years ago.
Mm.
So not only that, we are adding more earth science to quests, or more, we're adding more earth science quests like a latitude and longitude quest, floods and droughts, severe storms. And one that I'm especially excited for is a quest that is going to compare craters on the Earth with craters on the moon. So a quest that's kind of bridging the gap using the telescopes and the satellites in the same quest.
Love that
Not only
idea.
that, we're planning to add CTE quests that are kind of like a career awareness centric, where we're going to cover different careers like satellite data analysis, insurance adjusters, agriculture technicians, and more. Um, but with all of that said, don't worry, we're still going to be releasing more astronomy and space related quests. We have numerous collection quests that are in the pipeline for next year that are going to have students capturing some of the closest and brightest of different objects like nebulae and star clusters, but also trying to capture the environment around us, like capturing all the galaxies in the local group, among other fun and fascinating targets.
Wow, John, you've got a busy year ahead. So I wish you well, and I look forward to doing a load of those myself. But thank you very much, John. It's always a delight to listen to you and hear about the work of the Quest development team. You and Kelly are doing an absolutely splendid job. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me on and giving me some time to talk about this with everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Now, no offense to John or our other special guests, but we've kept the best until last. It's time to invite two extra special guests to the Star Party. Now, Stephanie Hanover is the Allen Academy's science, astronomy, and engineering teacher and STEM club mentor. She's been using Slooh for years with her eighth grade science and astronomy course. And Stephanie's also been a great ambassador for Slooh. She's presented Slooh to other educators at the National Science Teachers Association's convention, hosted Slooh's professional development webinars, and most recently was a guest on our Gravity Chats podcast with Slooh's president, Dr. Emma Kane-Loudon. Now, welcome, Stephanie. How are you? It's wonderful to have you with us.
I'm great, Paul. How are you? This is exciting. I've really enjoyed the podcast and the start party so far.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to introduce the person who's with you a little bit later on. But so you were on the new Gravity Chats, this new quarterly podcast hosted by our president, Dr. Emma Loudon. it kind of takes you behind the scenes of the telescopes and in the minds of educators, scientists, and citizen astronomers shaping the future of astronomy and STEM learning. You were featured in one of those conversations, sharing about the power of discovery in the classroom. Can you tell us a little bit more about the conversation and how using Slooh has helped you and your students' experience?
I just think it's one other factor. So as on top of, and John, we can't even keep up. You guys keep making it better and better and better. And so I after tonight, I'm like, oh gosh, I have more homework because I've got to keep up with what you're offering for the kids because it is just phenomenal. And then there's just the opportunity to, I'm actually in and out of, I have to go right at 8. My robotics team has a virtual presentation for their competition. But I've been walking between buildings with my Slooh and with my star party. And of course, the moon is right there. And it's such a great tool to connect. When you don't have your stars and you don't have the sky, you can jump on Slooh. But then when you do, it's so great to see it here and then go out and try to look for it in our natural world and make those connections. And, I think you guys said it earlier. Sometimes you might not know that the moon does, it may not look bigger, but it's brighter. And that's the factor
Yeah.
that we see. And so just kind of going, okay, does it really look brighter? Maybe taking a picture, and maybe looking at shadows and seeing what they look like and trying to see if you can really see that difference is so great. And I think that when you have Slooh to back all of those things up and learn from and start that curiosity, it's just
Mm.
magical.
It's that curiosity and it's the discovery as well that you were talking about in the podcast. Discovery being at the heart of learning. You can really hear how your students connect with Slooh and bring that same sense of wonder into everything they do. But Stephanie, speaking of inspiring students, shall we introduce one of yours who's with us
Alex.
tonight?
And he is a former student. He's in high school now, but he is continuing his Slooh, obviously at lightning speed or light speed, I guess we should say. And so yes, bring Alex on.
Is he here?
I I don't know how to know if he's here. I'm at school.
Yes,
He's
Alex is
I can see
in the attendees. I've just promoted him to a panelist.
oh,
Alex
all
is
right.
here.
Waiting
Wow.
for him to come
So
on.
I had actually assumed that Alex was actually with you, but Alex,
Oh
if you
no,
can,
he's on the robotics team too, but I think he got a break tonight.
Alex, can you unmute and hear us and talk to us?
Hello.
It is so wonderful to meet you at long last because I've been following everything that you've been sharing on Slooh's website, some of your amazing observations and things like that. But let me just give a brief introduction to Alex because Alex was the winner of our Falling for the Moon contest. And he's continued his astronomy journey even after leaving Stephanie's class and moving on to upper school in grade 9. Now, Alex has completed a rather impressive number of Slooh quests, including the Messier collection quest. These are vast quests, the Caldwell and Bennett collections. He's also an active member of the Slooh community, often sharing what he's learned and encouraging other members and students to do the same thing. He's also been at the top of the student leaderboard several times this year. Now, beyond astronomy, Alex, you're a talented violinist, I hear, a taekwondo practitioner, and as Stephanie said there, you're part of the strategy team on your robotics team. Tell us about that to start off with, because I'm fascinated to learn about. Because you've got some competitions this week, is that right?
Yeah, in the robotics teams, like as strategy, I like come up with so there's like points that you get for like doing certain things, and then like strategies in charge of like figuring out those points. And I like wrote the research paper that we have to like present about like our AI and everything. And this weekend, this Saturday, I think we have a competition, so we're
Wow.
going there to do it.
Well, I hope you're going to share how you get on with that. But anyway, back to your winning of Slooh's Falling for the Moon contest. Such an impressive accomplishment. Can you tell us what inspired your entry and how you first got interested in astronomy? Because we always love that kind of story.
Well, my entry, as you can see on there, was inspired by the Chinese myth or legend of Chang'e. She was the moon goddess who like drank the immortality potion and sent it to the moon. Um, So I've always been fascinated about how like astronomy connects with mythology because those are like two of my favorite interests. Like mythology, it's because like so many people like all those years ago, they were still coming up with these stories about how like constellations in the sky were going.
Yeah.
And like how like the Greek people, they thought they saw like the constellation like Sagittarius and Leo and all those in the stars. And that's just always been very fascinating and how like stuff so such far away like stars like millions of light years away can affect us here on Earth.
Mm. And it's that storytelling as well, captured in those constellations. It imparts knowledge from one generation to another down millennia. But you're exploring so many areas, Alex, from completing quests, topping the student leaderboard, excelling in music, robotics, and taekwondo. Do you see any connections between those interests and the curiosity or focus that astronomy requires as a subject?
Well, I just say it's important to be curious about everything. So that's why I have so many interests. I like engineering because it requires such creativity that
Yeah.
also is somewhat involved in astronomy as well. Because like
Mm.
people just like previously said, they saw lots of different stuff on the moon. They saw like moon goddesses. They saw there's even I've heard there's a dinosaur on the moon,
Yeah.
and there's just like so much creativity involved. And being creative is like such a useful skill in life.
It is, and I totally agree with you there because a lot of people they think of maybe engineering, a topic like engineering, and they think it's just piecing things together. But actually, I think engineering is one of the most creative topics that you can get involved with. So, what are you thinking of doing? Have you got any ideas on careers yet when you leave school and go to college, maybe?
I don't know yet.
That's a good place to be because your generation, you're going to live long enough. And I always say this, you'll be able to have multiple careers. So you can land up being an astronomer for 10 years and then go off and be a violinist for another 10 years. And you can have all of these different pastimes and jobs. So it's been. Is there anything else? Actually, tell us about this Messier collection quest poster that you did, because a lot of people watching might not know what the Messier catalog is and the kind of effort that you had to go through to create this.
So the Messier collection is this French person who I think lived like in the 1700s, and he was like a very famous astronomer who cataloged a lot of stuff in the northern sky. Like for example, many nebulae, many galaxies, and this is like a com this is a combination of all of them combined into like one poster of his entire catalog. And it requires a lot of hard work because like it's slow when you take pictures, like weather might not be good
Yeah,
and stuff might not always turn out the best. Like the one I'm pretty sure it's like Messier 70 something, it still hasn't turned out best. There's like interference in it, so it's extremely
yeah.
challenging to get all the objects.
Well, you've done an absolutely wonderful job there. And of course, you can go back and you can edit it if you get a better image of one of those objects. But that's one of the fun things, you raise that. And I know you've posted some Slooh art sometimes, which is when something goes miraculously wrong and it actually creates quite an interesting image sometimes. So that's quite good. Now, Alex, we've got loads of new students who have started using Slooh just this semester. If you were to give any advice to students who have just started using Slooh, what would it be?
Mm, don't be afraid of making mistakes and saying like wrong information. Post your observations and get comments and learn from them, and you'll learn a lot as well. Just like keep on learning from everything. Like learn about the celestial objects, learn about how to take good slew captures,
Yeah.
and don't give up.
That is I think you have to be patient and tenacious in astronomy because we battle the weather, we battle technical issues and all manner of things. But you've done an absolutely brilliant job. Carry on doing what you're doing on Slooh because it's absolutely fascinating watching your journey. Stephanie, we're not going to let you go quite yet, Alex, so hang around because I've got some news for you. Stephanie, have you got any recommendations for new educators who have started using Slooh this semester?
I think kind of like what Alex said, you want to stay interesting or stay interested, stay curious. I think starting with things like the ABCs and the ones that just kind of give them a little bit of everything, get different kids excited about different parts. I think one of the things that's also interesting is the fact that, and John talked about this, you've got the history slews, which some of the kids that are your history buffs are really going to enjoy. There's some kind of fun ones like the labyrinths and things like that, where the kids are having to look for clues. And I think giving them a variety of quests up front, you might find that different ones hit different kids, and you can kind of get them all like that. You'll find kids like Alex that just, you have to tell them to slow down because you're gonna get to that one in class together. And so I had to give him a list of don't do these yet. You can do all the other ones because he was just taking off. And so and now he comes in. He's gonna be helping out our classes, and he's already offered to come in, especially when we start doing things like, wanting to fix the pictures up and make them nicer and digitize
Brilliant.
them a little bit. So he's going to come and help and show what he's learned through that process. And he kind of did that on his own. So I'm really proud of him for all of it.
Yeah, and it's not just other students, it's members as well, Alex, that you've been inspiring. So thank you both very much for joining us. But you're still not going, Alex, because I've got something to tell you. So it really has been a delight to welcome you both to the Star Party, and it's a wonderful perspective and such an inspiring way to end the journey tonight. It's incredible to see how your kind of combined curiosity, because Stephanie, I wish I'd had a science teacher like you when I was at school. You really are such an inspiration. But anyway, before we let you go, we've got a little surprise for you, Alex. You're currently on level 8, Swan Levitt. That's about gravity points and all the gamification within Slooh. Everything that you do, every time you post one of those wonderful observations, you get some gravity points and you move up the levels. Well, because you've appeared on the show tonight and for winning the Falling the Moon contest, we are going to award you 10,000 special gravity points to help you on your way to the top level of Slooh, which is level 9, named after Edwin Hubble. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, check your gravity points because there's going to be 10,000 more of them in there. How's that?
Wow, that 10,000 is really hard to get.
10,000 is really hard, but I think you've already got, what, 61,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, you're an absolute inspiration. It's exactly the kind of contribution to the community that we want to reward. So thank you so much for everything that you and Stephanie, how you support us as well. You're both very inspiring. So thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having us and for spotlighting Alex. That's just amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Take care. Check your gravity points in the morning. So huge thank you to Stephanie Hanover and Alex from the Allen Academy for joining us today. You're both incredibly inspiring to other educators, students, and the Slooh team, all of us. It's really great to see what you're doing with the platform. So anyway, we are still looking at these live images coming in from the Canary Islands Observatory of the full Beaver Supermoon. What a spectacular view we've had tonight. I was so worried we were going to have clouds tonight. But anyway, it is time to end the Star Party. We've run over a little bit. Apologies about that. But I'd like to thank our experts tonight, Dr. John Bovair, Keith and Milton, and of course our special guests from the Allen Academy, educator Stephanie Hanover and grade 9 student now, Alex. What a talented and inspiring young man he is. And massive thanks as well to our event and community manager, Gretchen Bickert. These events wouldn't be possible without your fantastic work behind the scenes, so thank you very much. But that's it for now. Until next time, clear skies, everybody. Bye, everyone.